I really hope that it lets her join me now. I'm gonna be so mad. Did I hit that button prematurely? Hi, Internet. What's going on? Uh, we're supposed to be joined today by the lovely kitty cat, who is going to be doing a reading of part of the first chapter of Caliban and the Witch. And I'm really, really hoping that it lets her join now, even though I have gone ahead and I sent you the link. I sent her the link just a moment ago. So we shall wait and see, I suppose. Worst case scenario, I'll get an email saying, what? Right? I hope everybody is doing as well as can be expected under current circumstances. And today we're here, to kind of educate ourselves about some of the larger themes at play behind the scenes. Well, in everything, anyway. This book is not current, and it doesn't matter. Some things are timeless, unfortunately. Uh, like, patriarchy and capitalism seem timeless, don't they? And if you don't think those two things are current, relevant right now, well, then I don't know what to say. Right? That's clearly big parts of the mess in which we find ourselves. Something's buzzing. What was that? Oh my goodness. No. Okay. Yay. Hooray.
Oh, yay.
Yay. And I have my headphones on today too, so maybe I will be less roomy as well. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm getting by. The weather is finally turning. How is it
I've
up
had a
there?
long day myself because of yesterday. I
Oh,
was telling you about the court, right? So
yeah.
I'll explain that in just a sec here.
Mm.
Getting my mic set up. Hold on. Ready to
Take
go.
your
There we
time.
go. So, oops,
Hey,
wrong button.
Belle. How you doing? Belle's here. What's up?
So
I'll talk to
for
people this day.
yesterday, we were helping someone out in charging a man who at the Children's Million March and the nationwide march in Canada for anti-soji practices in schools. Some guy just walked up to her and he was ready for a fight, like because he wore army fatigues and had a metal pole with him.
See, I heard about this. I remember hearing about this. I wonder if you're not the one who told me about it.
I might have been.
Yeah.
It's
How
been a
long
long
ago was
time
this?
coming because this happened in 2023.
Yeah.
It took that long for the courts to actually, finally start listening to the hearing, right? Because they kept on postponing it. But so he just goes up and was trying to antagonize the anti-soji, the
Oh,
march
hi,
thing.
Crystal. Hi.
With the because there's other protesters that were countering that protest, right? And so he goes up and he's trying to antagonize, and he goes up to this woman and is trying to antagonize her and tries to shove his side that he had in her face and being antagonistic. He's like 6'4", 300 pounds, easy, right? And
Yeah.
so it's when she pushed the sign away out of her face, and he full on punched her right in the face. It went down
Oh
like
my
right, and then he
God.
ran, and then he was trying to swing his pole at people, be like, "Get away, get away!" Some guy and his wife they stopped the car. They had to stop the car because they could see he was getting antagonistic, and he got out, and the guy actually chased him. And to make sure that he wouldn't leave, right? But so the cops could
Did
get him.
she
And he
need
actually
surgery?
no. Well, she broke her nose and I think fractured
Yeah.
her cheekbone or something like that.
Wow. Yeah.
Like if she had a concussion, they drove her to the hospital and stuff like that. But because he really one punch, right, and she hit her head on the sidewalk. Like
Oh,
he was
damn.
ready to go. He was raring to go. Though you could tell, right? Obviously.
Well, because the woman who's half his size is probably going to be the
Yeah, and she's
aggressor in a
not a big
public
woman
place.
either. Like she's skinny
It's
mini and like
Ramadan. Please cover
she's
your
older
head.
too. She's an
No,
older lady. She's not
I'm
like
not going to
some
be doing that. Wait,
yeah.
did you
Like
hear this? Wait, you need to be praying and fasting. It's Ramadan. Please cover your head. These are the comments. Can you see these?
who is that?
Gabriel Martinez. This new person. I don't know.
Oh, there's like, yeah, I don't know either.
That's
They might have
fun.
to. Yeah,
Peace to
there's.
you, Gabriel, but not everybody's Muslim.
I don't know if that's even a bot or not. It might be a bot.
I don't care.
I know.
That's it.
Okay,
I'm
but
sorry.
if
I
they
just
keep
thought that
on,
was
but if they keep
amazing,
on posting over
actually.
and over again, you might have to remove them. That's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
I just thought that was kind of amazing. Sorry.
Okay.
Carry on.
Anyway, so yeah, so they finally we've been trying to charge this guy for I don't know, couple like it's been a few years now.
You're going on
Finally, they
3, I
stopped
guess.
postponing it, and like yeah, so we were at the courthouse. We were trying to like help with her, and yeah, even the person who actually organized the event, like the march, actually came, which is nice. The one for
Oh.
the city we were in,
Hmm.
and spoke on like about what was happening and how the issue was, and the event was before that occurrence, because he was trying to antagonize them all, right?
Well, I'm sure. I'm sure a person like that didn't just, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably everybody who came across him that day could be like, yeah.
Even the trans activists on the other side were just throwing him under the bus, like we don't know him. One lady, oh my god, has testified. She's like, the way that she was like constructing the narrative, she's trying to obviously make it sound like this was a setup. The anti-Soji people, that they did this to set them up. We don't know him. It seems like a setup. And like,
Wait, so
lady,
who was
no.
accused?
Oh, I'm
Who,
sorry,
who,
they them, because they went with they them pronouns, I think.
I'm sorry. I thought this was a man, wasn't it?
The one that punched her, yeah. But
Yeah.
this is a witness, right? That was there to
Oh,
testify. Yeah.
okay.
And she
Said that the trans woman or whoever
yeah,
he
the
is.
trans activists that were throwing them that were being put up there as witnesses,
Uh-huh.
were just trying to throw them under the bus, I guess.
Wow.
Particularly that lady who was trying to construct that narrative
Hi, geek
that it
girl.
must have been a setup. That they did this. They're all in on it
Oh, oh,
together.
oh. So the guy who did the punching is
Yeah,
like an operative
yeah,
to make
for
them
our
look
side,
bad.
for
To
our
make them
side.
look bad. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's about the level. Yep,
I mean,
that
and the
sounds
thing is, I
familiar.
understand that yes, there are they do that a lot. Like the government will do that, but the government is on your side.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think the United
Which
States
should
government is
tell
on
you
both
something. If
sides,
you ever
but
agree with the state, a lot of the times it's the opposite you should be doing. It's a great,
especially
it's a
these
good indicator
days.
that something is amiss, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, because I do understand agitators and stuff like that. They do that, and they'll
It's
have
an
people go
anti
into
what
groups
protest?
and they'll
Oh,
infiltrate groups and stuff. But like the thing is, why would the government do that to a side that they agree with you? They're not
oh,
going to mess
well,
you up.
to continue dividing and conquering so they can just make slaves of everybody. But
Yeah, but they
Belle
usually go to
wants
the
to know what
opposition
they
side.
were protesting. Soji, can you remind us what that is, please? Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forget. Not everyone's from Canada. SOGI is sexual orientation and gender identity. It's a program guidelines for schools to implement gender identity and idealism and all that.
Which all
To
sounds very familiar to us, but yeah, that's the
yeah, it's
terminology.
there's the same thing, but in a different name in different countries. So
Mm-hmm.
this one's the one in Canada is called SOGI, and so it's a way to implement the ideology within every part of the curriculum, so that it's not like a course, so that you can't fight it, you can't opt out.
Yay.
So yeah, and like
Yay.
they're starting these things like in kindergarten, so which is just bananas.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't remember giving the option to opt out of my biological sex, but whatever. Oh my goodness. I saw this thing. I'm sorry. I'm talking about feminism like today, like this thing, I don't know. The trans thing. It makes me so mad. This girl went to a local, like it was here in Tennessee, and it got some traction. It kind of went viral from what I could tell. I saw other like Kyle Kalinske was talking about her video, like showed her video. I was so happy for her. Until 2 months ago, she was like, and I'm going to help you deconstruct your evangelical faith, girl, and then went like hard into politics. Like, and you love to see it, right? But
Yeah.
like, so she went to this town hall and was being very aggressive with this woman who is just so slimy. and I loved it. And then it's right at the end. The thing she got most aggressive about was the lady was talking about women's sports, and she's like, "There's two biological sexes," and she's like, "No, there's not. No, there's not. Intersex people exist. Say intersex people exist. Say intersex people exist." I'm like, "That's not even what this is about."
Intersex people are either male or female, by the way.
Yes, yes. Also that, but that's not even what this is about.
I know. I know.
That was what she ended up getting kicked out of the meeting for.
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
That's the hill you want to die on? Oh, I was so mad.
Yeah,
Hey, Alfalfa.
that's about right. I know it gets you. Yeah, you just get your
It's such
spine
a
up
beautiful
sometimes.
example, and if I were making a video this week, that would have been it. So
Yeah.
anyway,
That would have been. That's okay. It's good to rant sometimes. You
yes,
need to,
yes.
or else you go
I got to
crazy.
say what I wanted to say, and Christy Burke. Anybody can go and look at her video. It is good. It's 95% of those 23 minutes was solid, and listening to that crowd heckle that woman is so heartwarming.
I know they're trying so hard to make this narrative that like so many people agree. Like, okay, say for that march, for instance, every news outlet, like counter protest huge, and they're with a small crowd, but it was literally the opposite. We know because we were there. Like there was barely anyone on the pro side, and a bunch of people. Like I said, it was a million march. Like it was a nationwide march.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and
Against it.
yeah, but the way that they
Yeah.
try to present it is that like this is so normal that to have soji or sexual identity or sexual
Yeah.
orientation and gender identity
It's
thing
not just
in
acceptable,
schools,
it is
and that everyone
normal.
wants it there, and that there's just these few people that are just bigots.
A
You
bunch
know
of
how it
right wing
goes.
bigots. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've got that so, and that was what made me really mad about that young woman. She's fallen for that hook, line, and sinker,
Yeah.
obviously. And that stupid Republican lady who literally had to stand up there and say, she doesn't know this, she doesn't know that, she's not responsible for that, that's not my job,
Hmm.
several times.
Yeah.
They were like, Project 2025 is happening. She's like, well, I haven't read it. Isn't that your job? Like, literally?
Right.
Okay. Um, it was so pathetic. It was
Yeah.
so pathetic. But so then this young woman has, clearly taken that as women's issue, that whole sports issue, even just that, as being a right wing issue. So she's just swallowed that silk entirely that she didn't see.
Well, it's hard to differentiate between
Our
what's
fabulous
the
family.
reality,
Thank you.
because you either are, if you're on the left wing, quote unquote left or liberal, you don't realize it's right wing. You don't. And so if you have both right wings, and then parties are right wing, and
Well,
you sort of, it's like mob mentality. Like they don't want you thinking about the issues and
it's so
coming up with your
frustrating to
own
me.
critical thinking and
It is,
realizing what is the reality. They want you to do is put you into different camps. And
yeah,
that's one of the things I've
that
noticed too,
divide and
because of
conquer
this
thing.
sort of,
And what's driving me crazy, how the left, I guess, are playing into the left, around, at least around here, are playing into this right now, is they're like,
yeah.
and just loving calling the Trump administration fascist. They're just loving that all day, which they are. But so are they.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
it's a
Exactly.
different.
You're no
It's
different.
just a
You're no
different
different.
flavor. It's a different flavor. And
Yeah.
I feel real bad for the liberals. They didn't get to roll out their whole trans ideology thing as fully as they wanted to. I'm so sad for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Boo hoo.
Boo fucking who? Yeah. But so. Oh.
But that's the thing, is that they're trying, they want, the way that they box people thinking in is saying, okay, so this is right and this is left,
Mhm.
and they
And
kind
you
of go no
can't.
further than that. And
Right.
if you're thinking of, if you believe in this, then that means you're on this side, means you have to believe
Hmm.
all the things, all the talking
Oh,
points.
I know, because I can't. I don't think men can be women. I am like an anti-Semitic, anti-immigration. Like I don't even know what their platform is anymore. Christian nationalist, something. I don't know. It's so much, right? It's so much that I am expected, that I'm just assumed, right, to subscribe to.
Yeah.
Just insane.
Well, it's the
Well,
same thing
insane
that
shit
for
those
me
people are
with
doing now that I'm just expected to be like cool with because I don't think men can be women.
yeah,
Ah,
exactly.
no, 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 no,
And
no, no,
that
no, no,
goes for
no.
the, and it's even goes for some of the radical feminists out there. They just assume that because now that the so-called left has abandoned them, right? But they haven't really. A small amount of leftists know understand this, and Marxists too.
Right.
they don't get amplified, right, in the
Like,
public.
does
And so
egalitarianism
what they
still
do,
do
what
its
happens is
thing?
that
You
they've
know?
gone to the point where now they're grifting to the right, and they're just
Yes.
taking on whatever right talking points. And I'm like,
Yes, yes,
what are you
yes. That bleed
talking
over is
about?
so creepy. That bleed over is so creepy. Yes. Oh my gosh. That's so bizarre. Yes. Because the right is still the right. You know, you can make
Yeah,
the left just like a wimpy version of the right, but the right is still going to be the right. Like, you know,
yeah, they're not your
they're
friends.
no, I've never. Right.
And
No.
for me, I know this might be controversial, depending on who our audience members are, but like it's the same thing with say Israel Palestine. Everyone before this knew that Israel, well, how it came to be, what it's doing, and it has been doing for 75 years. And then all of a sudden, y'all forget it, and like now you're all like shitting on like pro-Palestinian
I have
protesters.
never.
Everyone, even if you don't believe it, you have a right to protest, but they're all
I
gung
have.
ho for they're like
Yeah.
there's taking of their freedom of speech and assembly. You can't do that. If you're for free speech, you're for free speech for all. See, this
Right.
is what I mean. They're grifting to the right. And I'm like, what are you doing?
You're right. Yeah, no, 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 no. Because it becomes the only space to exist in a way, but
Right?
not to defend them. Not to
But
defend
that
them,
just
but
appalls me because I'm like, think for
yeah,
yourself. Don't let the
yeah.
mob mentality think for you. Don't be a grift. It's a
Oh,
grift.
yeah.
It's trying to suck you back into this two
Well, and I
party
think
system
there,
kind of idea.
not to play the rhyming game, but I feel like there's a drift too over time, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that you have to be mindful of, even within yourself, for sure.
No,
And
you
like, I
do. You
wanted to
totally
say,
do. Because nobody's immune to the propaganda out there. I know, like, you
right.
have to constantly have to be constantly on your guard. I can't even
Yeah.
speak.
Oh, dear.
And I have to
No,
read.
yeah, oh dear. No, but I did want to say really quick. I keep seeing all this stuff out of like the UK, in particular, about they're talking about U.S. politics. Like Iowa took trans rights out of their state bill, blah blah blah. I'm like, that's great. That's great. That's super. Have you been paying any attention to anything else?
Yeah.
What's going on over here? Because I almost can't be moved to care about that right now. The administration is perfectly happy to admit that I exist so that I can be in servitude to them. This is not the problem right now, you
Yeah.
know? And it was a distraction in the first place.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
frustrating. These people are still on about that. I'm like, no, no, we can move on now. We've been given permission to move on now, finally.
Yeah. Right. Uh,
Speaking of which, I'm so sorry. We're 20 minutes in.
we will get to reading. I swear. I've got photos too. Still,
That's awesome.
I love my little presentation.
Me too.
I'm such a nerd.
No, no,
Anyways,
same,
okay.
same, no shame. Oof.
So what were you gonna say?
Oh, well, that was pretty much my rant about just people from other
Oh,
countries don't seem to like. I don't understand, like, why. And obviously, people here on the liberal left are still going to be worried about that because that's their goddamn bailiwick, right? That's
right.
their
Well, they can't look at the economy and try to fix a lot of the problems, which is based upon that, because then it'll cost billionaires money.
No, it's because of what you were saying last time about how successful it's been at breaking up left
Well, yeah, but
communities and
that's what they
whatever.
want to do.
So,
Yeah, because
so
they
there's
want to
still
do
going
that
to be
because
that being pumped in. I'm not expecting that to go away.
no, I know, but
It's
like
so effective.
but yeah, it is, and well, like what I mean is that the liberals themselves can't talk or think or focus on anything other than cultural, because if you
Mm,
start to focus on class, then or even admit that there's a class that exists, because there is a class. It's class,
yeah,
right? They don't want to
that is
actually
the
acknowledge
core of
that
the problem at the moment, is it
because
not?
then they might start thinking, wait about what about the economic class, and then they have to then their masses of people might start demanding to be fairly compensated
Right? Yeah.
monetarily, and they don't want that.
No, right. Yeah. So I
So
feel
that's
like a
why
lot
they
of the
focus
left
on
is just like distraction at this point to make
yeah,
people feel
it is.
better because so that they don't have to tell themselves that they support all of the other bullshit that's going on.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
exactly. It's a
so
great disruptor.
ineffectual for the
It's a
most
great
part.
disruptor. And
It's
like I said,
yeah.
the IRC acknowledged this in their um, s- um, in their forms or whatever that were leaked.
Right. No,
There's
but I just
useful
mean liberal
strategies
media in
right now.
general.
Yeah,
Whether like the independent liberal media is being like actively propagandized, I don't know, and it doesn't matter because they're so neutered. They're so like,
right.
ooh, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yay, people in Congress were yelling at him. The fuck? Really? The fuck? That's like yelling at the executioner after they cut the guy's head off. What?
yeah. Have you
Really?
seen the town halls lately? They've been going viral.
Yeah, no, that's
It-
what I'm saying. I was watching one that was here in my state that I really enjoyed until the end. Um,
yeah,
and I've seen a few others, and that's so nice. That's so heartwarming.
I'm like, yes, kill them, get after
Our
them.
local lady did hers by computer. She did hers remotely,
I've seen
and
so
it
many
was
though
the.
where they're just roughhousing the people up though, like
Well,
dragging
I
them
don't know about
out.
roughing them up. I don't know if I support
Oh, I've
that.
seen a couple. That's what I mean. I've seen a couple of them
Oh
where they
wow.
have like the private security, right? So because
Yeah.
if they cops did that, then they could be sued. The cops, so they get the private security, and then they're seeing them drag out this woman, this lady,
Hmm.
like by force. They didn't have any badge. They didn't like tell when she asked, "Who are you?" They didn't even say anything.
Right. No, and
Like,
I really that girl, like those cops that dragged her out of that place were some good old boys. You know what I'm saying? I would not want to
yeah,
be facing them down, even in a well lit, crowded room. Like those dudes, like make me nervous.
yeah. No, I know. So, I mean, at least it's good to see that people are not being taken in by the right either, right?
Yeah,
So
they're not just going along with it. At least the people
because,
aren't.
well, I mean, right away there's like usually there's usually a honeymoon period after U.S. elections. It's the same in Canada, where everyone's got these rose-tinted glasses on, especially when there's a
Mm,
change up, right? Thinking that
hmm.
things are going to get better. It doesn't seem to be lasting as long because already we are having town hall
Well,
meetings.
like
People get thrown
compare
out.
this. Oh my gosh. If you compare this to like when right after Obama took office in 2008, and yeah, the
Yeah,
right wing were losing their minds, but
everyone's had those rose-tinted glasses on. They did.
yeah, oh
And so
wow,
even
so
though like
bad, yeah.
but now even like right because like in Texas these town halls are happening in red states. So it's
Hmm.
also like so it's
Hmm.
not just like one side against the other. It's like every which is good. This is what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be
Well,
the working class, the lower class against the
right.
elite class.
And if you want to talk about liberal versus conservative, goes back to what I've been saying about their agenda is not conservative.
No,
It's destructive. Conservatives want to conserve the order that we have.
traditional. It's like traditional kind of order, but the what's come
Yeah.
in is
But
these tech bros. They're tech
conservatives don't go
bros.
in and take
They want
fucking
techno.
wrecking balls to
They
shit.
want techno feudalism. Basically, they
Yeah.
want servitude. This is why they're cutting every single government program that has any inclination of helping the masses of people. They want everything privatized completely. And that's gonna
Yeah.
really fuck up the country. It really is. If you have any doubt about that, just like I said before, look at Argentina because Millet or whatever the president there is. That's exactly what they did, and they love the guy. They're constantly having him on these different events and stuff, and like singing his praises. And like the country now is like what like over 50 like 53% like in poverty right now
Yeah.
and
Right.
getting worse. And he just became president.
Oh my god. No,
Yeah,
I
the
know.
country's
It's
in
bad.
really bad condition right now.
It's
And
bad.
he just he just did a pump and dump with a Bitcoin or whatever. And so he just ripped off a bunch of people millions of dollars and a crypto scam that he tweeted out. Where they have a bunch, they buy up a bunch, but then drop it and then get the
That's
massive payout, and then everyone else loses their money.
uh-huh. I understand how that works. I don't understand why anyone ever invests in that stuff, but
I know, but they do, and
um
he just fucked over. He just did a pump and dump. That shit's illegal, but because he's president in a
right.
state that's got the backing of the U.S., no, he's not only going to be, he's not going to be having to have any consequence of that. And they're singing his praises. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God, no.
Geek Girl says the Des Moines subreddit is coming unglued about the civil rights legislation. Da, da, da. In a good way or a bad way? Do they like
Mhm.
it or do they hate you? Like, I'm not all up on that. I admit I've stopped following the trans issue for the most part because, again, I feel like it is not, and never really was, the biggest issue at hand here.
No, it's not. It is partly distraction. It is partly a way to get people sort of in this idea of a framework mind of transhumanism, and it's about the
Mhm.
control of reproduction,
Mhm.
women's parts basically, so that they can like make their own humans. They don't want
Yeah.
to be
Oh,
have
yeah.
any sort of control. They don't want any women to have any sort of control over the reproduction of labor force.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
know because
they
that's
have to take it,
a
and they're doing it by like recreating woman wombs and
they're gonna
body
convince
parts
us to
outside of a
hand
woman's
it
body.
over happily. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
That part's well underway.
I
Oh my
know.
god.
So that's what it's for. So it's not just a distraction. There is an actual reason for it, but it goes hand in hand with everything else when it comes to
Well,
like
first of all, I'm tired
exploitation.
of breathing air into it for one thing. It was my entree, if you will, to the world of, actively being involved in this stuff
Yeah,
because based upon my own historical experiences, I could not sit by and just let that happen, you
yeah.
know?
I just have too much of an ego and a big mouth. I just don't shut up about it. I just know
I
what I
just am
know, and I
so
have to speak the truth for
you
what I know.
know, if it comes up, I've commented on a couple of different, several different videos in the last few weeks because I'm not making my own content anymore. And sometimes, like I say, I'll be watching a video and it'll just come up and be stupid. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and speak up about that because that's stupid. And it's not like
Doggo.
I haven't said all this 100 fucking times. So, like, it's not like I have to think about what it is that I want to say.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's the other thing is I've said it all 100 times. How many videos can you make on the
And
same
how many
topic?
exactly? And like it's either like what else can you say? You've said it all. Like
Yeah. It's not
there's
as
got
if
to
it
be a different
changes.
there's got to be a different tactics for implementation, because just
Yeah.
talking about it's not going to do anything. It's a start, but we've already been here. Like
Doggos,
I've been
yeah.
at this
Sorry.
since like 2010, 2009, 2010, something like that.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm not giving up the fight or
Oh
anything,
yeah,
but
I know, but like it's tiring.
yeah, I'm taking a different tack for a while. And
Yeah.
thank you so much once again. 1,000 thank yous. I'm just gonna keep saying thank you, and I hope that's okay for helping us out with that and reading this amazing book.
Yeah.
Because
I also, by the way, everyone, I got a new mic, so hopefully I'll sound a little bit better. Can hear the doggos.
yeah, sorry, I don't think there's nothing I can do about that.
That's
They are here.
okay.
They will be here. I'll be muted while you're reading, so you won't have to worry about them.
Okay, perfect. So also, I just want to say that just so everyone knows, we're not going to be discussing anything like in between the reading, simply because I got a new mic. It sounds great, but I don't know how to get the sound on where I can hear what on the opposite side of the screen. So I won't be able to understand what anyone's saying. This includes Rad Mom. So yeah.
So we're gonna have a reading and then a discussion.
Yeah. So write
Yeah.
notes if you want to maybe write it something down in the chat. Also, I want to note that I might pronounce some things wrong. There's some things that are in French, some in Italian.
No one's gonna
Names. I
cry
know there's
about
some
that.
names I'm going to be reading. I'm really bad with like pronouncing names, especially if it's in a different language. Um, there might be some words. If I do pronounce it wrong, it's simply because when you read, especially when you read a lot, that and you learn new words from that, you don't hear it being actually spoken out loud. And there might be some words
Yeah.
I've pronounced wrong. So sorry about that if I have. I'll
It's
try I'll try to do my best.
it's all good.
Okay. I'm just gonna set up here and we'll start in just a moment.
Okay.
Get my chair ready
I
and
got
plug
my
my damn
paper and
ass
my
in.
pencil.
Okay, so hear me? Just give a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So we're going to be doing the chapter 1, All the World Needs Adults, part 1. We're doing the 4 subsections. So introduction, serfdom as a class relation, the struggle on the commons, and liberty and social division. So yeah, and then I'll just leave that there for now. Okay, and let's begin.
I should
All
have
right.
told her it's
All the
sideways.
world needs a
Shit.
jolt.
Sorry.
Social movements and political crisis in medieval Europe. Quote, all the world must suffer a big jolt. There will be such a game that the ungodly will be thrown off their seats and the downtrodden will rise. End quote. By Thomas Müntzer in Open Denial of the False Belief of the Godless World on the Testimony of the Gospel of Luke in circa 1524. Quote, there is no denying that after centuries of struggle, exploitation does continue to exist. Only its form has changed. The surplus labor extracted here and there by the masters of today's world is not smaller in proportion to the total amount of labor than the surplus extracted long ago. But the change in the conditions of exploitation is not, in my view, negligible. What is important is the history of the striving for liberation. That end quote by Pierre Dox in his book Medieval Slavery and Liberation, circa 1982. So, introduction. A history of women and reproduction in the transition to capitalism must begin with the struggles that the European medieval proletariat, small peasants, artisans, day laborers, waged against feudal power in all its forms. Only if we evoke these struggles with their rich cargo of demands, social and political aspirations, and antagonistic practices can we understand the role that women had in the crisis of feudalism and why their power had to be destroyed for capitalism to develop, as it was by the 3-century-long persecution of the witches. From the vantage point of this struggle, we can also see that capitalism was not the product of an evolutionary development bringing forth economic forces that were maturing in the womb of the old order. Capitalism was the response of a feudal lords, the patrician merchants, the bishops, the popes, to a centuries-long social conflict that, in the end, shook their power and truly gave all the world a big jolt. Capitalism was the counter-revolution that destroyed the possibilities that had emerged from the anti-feudal struggle. Possibilities which, if realized, might have spared us the immense destruction of lives and the natural environment that has marked the advance of capitalist relations worldwide. This much must be stressed, for the belief that capitalism evolved from feudalism and represents a higher form of social life has not yet been dispelled. How the history of women intersects with that of capitalist development cannot be grasped, however, if we concern ourselves only with the classic terrains of class struggle, labor services, wage rates, rents, and ignore the new visions of social life and the transformation of gender relations which these conflicts produced. These were not negligible. It is in the course of the anti-feudal struggle that we find the first evidence in European history of a grassroots women's movement opposed to the established order and contributing to the construction of alternative models of communal life. The struggle against feudal power also produced the first organized attempts to challenge the dominant sexual norms and establish more egalitarian relations between women and men. Combined with the refusal of bonded labor and commercial relations, these conscious forms of social transgression constructed a powerful alternative not only to feudalism but to the capitalist order by which feudalism was replaced, demonstrating that another world was possible and urging us to question why it was not realized. This chapter searches for some answers to this question, while examining how the relations between women and men and the reproduction of labor power were redefined in opposition to feudal rule. The social struggles of the Middle Ages must also be remembered, because they wrote a new chapter in the history of liberation. At their best, they called for an egalitarian social order based upon the sharing of wealth and the refusal of hierarchies and authoritarian rule. These were to remain utopias, instead of the heavenly kingdom whose advent was prophesied in the preaching of the heretics and millenarian movements. What issued from the demise of feudalism were disease, war, famine, and death, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, as represented in Albrecht Dürer's famous print, true harbingers of the new capitalist era. Nevertheless, the attempts that the medieval proletariat made to turn the world upside down must be reckoned with, for despite their defeat, they put the feudal system into crisis, and, in their time, they were genuinely revolutionary, as they could not have succeeded without a radical reshaping of the social order. Reading the transition from the viewpoint of the anti-feudal struggle of the Middle Ages also helps us to reconstruct the social dynamics that lay in the background of the English enclosures and the conquest of the Americas, and above all unearth some of the reasons why, in the 16th and 17th centuries, the extermination of the witches and the extension of state control over every aspect of reproduction became the cornerstones of primitive accumulation. Next section, serfdom as a class relation. While the anti-feudal struggles of the Middle Ages cast some light on the development of capitalist relations, their own political significance will remain hidden unless we frame them in the broader context of the history of serfdom, which was the dominant class relation in feudal society and, until the 14th century, the focus of anti-feudal struggle. Serfdom developed in Europe between the 5th and 7th centuries AD in response to the breakdown of the slave system on which the economy of imperial Rome had been built. It was the result of two related phenomena. By the 4th century, in the Roman territories and the new Germanic states, the landlords had to grant the slaves the right to have a plot of land and a family of their own in order to stem their revolts and prevent their flight to the bush, where maroon communities were forming at the margins of the empire. At the same time, the landlords began to subjugate the free peasants, who, ruined by the expansion of slave labor and later the Germanic invasions, turned to the lords for protection, although at the cost of their independence. Thus, while slavery was never completely abolished, a new class relation developed that homogenized the conditions of former slaves and free agricultural workers, placing all the peasantry in a subordinate condition, so that for 3 centuries, from the 9th to the 11th, peasant would be synonymous with serf. As a work relation and a juridical status, serfdom was an enormous burden. The serfs were bonded to the landlords, their persons and possessions were their master's property, and their lives were ruled in every aspect by the law of the manor. Nevertheless, serfdom redefined the class relations in terms more favorable to the workers. Serfdom marked the end of gang labor, of life in the ergastula, and a lessening of the atrocious punishments, the iron collars, the burnings, the crucifixions, on which slavery had relied. On the feudal estates, the serfs were subjugated to the law of the lord, but their transgressions were judged on the basis of customary agreements, and in time even of a peer-based jury system. The most important aspect of serfdom from the viewpoint of the changes it introduced in the master-servant relation is that it gave the serfs direct access to the means of their reproduction. In exchange for the work which they were bound to do on the lord's land, the domain, the serfs received a plot of land which they could use to support themselves and pass down to their children, like a real inheritance, by simply paying a succession due. As Pierre Dox points out in Medieval Slavery and Liberation in 1982, this arrangement increased the serfs' autonomy and improved their living conditions, as they could now dedicate more time to their reproduction and negotiate the extent of their obligations, instead of being treated like chattel, subject to an unconditional rule. Most important, having the effective use and possession of a plot of land meant that the serfs could always support themselves, and even at the peak of their confrontations with the lords, they could not easily be forced to bend because of their fear of starvation. True, the lord could throw recalcitrant serfs off the land, but this was rarely done, given the difficulty of recruiting new laborers in a fairly closed economy and the collective nature of peasant struggles. This is why, as Marx noted, on the feudal manor, the exploitation of labor always depended on this direct use of force. The experience of self-reliance, which the peasants gained from having access to land, also had a political and ideological potential. In time, the serfs began to look at the land they occupied as their own, and to view as intolerable the restrictions that the aristocracy imposed on their freedom, land to the tillers, the demand that has echoed through the 20th century from the Mexican and Russian revolutions to the contemporary struggles against land privatization is a battle cry which the medieval serfs would have certainly recognized as their own. But the strengths of the villeins stemmed from the fact that access to land was a reality for them. With the use of land also came the use of the commons, meadows, forests, lakes, wild pastures, that provided crucial resources for the peasant economy: wood for fuel, timber for building, fish ponds, grazing grounds for animals, and fostered community cohesion and cooperation. In northern Italy, control over these resources even provided the basis for the development of communal self-administrations. So important were the commons in the political economy and struggles of the medieval rural population that their memory still excites our imagination, projecting the vision of a world where goods can be shared in solidarity rather than desire for self-aggrandizement, can be the substance of social relations. The medieval servile community fell short of these goals and should not be idealized as an example of communalism. In fact, its example reminds us that neither communalism or localism can be a guarantee of egalitarian relations unless the community controls its means of subsistence and all its members have equal access to them. This was not the case with the serfs on the feudal manors. Despite the prevalence of collective forms of work and collective contracts with the landlords, and despite the local character of the peasant economy, the medieval village was not a community of equals. As established by vast documentation coming from every country of Western Europe, there were many social differences within the peasantry that separated free peasants and those of servile status, rich and poor peasants, peasants with secure land tenure, and landless laborers working for a wage on the lord's domain, and women and men. Land was usually given to men and transmitted through the male lineage, though there were many cases of women who inherited it and managed it in their name. Women were also excluded from the offices to which the better off male peasants were appointed, and to all effects they had a second-class status. This perhaps is why their names are rarely mentioned in the manorial registers, except for those of the courts in which the serfs' transgressions were recorded. Nevertheless, female serfs were less dependent on their male kin, less differentiated from them physically, socially, and psychologically, and were less subservient to men's needs than the free women were to be later on in capitalist society. Women's dependence on men within the servile community was limited by the fact that over the authority of their husbands and fathers prevailed that of the lords, who claimed possession of the serfs' persons and property, and tried to control every aspect of their lives, from work to marriage and even sexual behavior. It was the lord who commanded women's work and social relations, deciding, for instance, whether a widow should remarry and who should be her spouse, in some areas even claiming the right to sleep with a serf's wife on her wedding night. Lovely. The authority of male serfs over their female relatives was further limited by the fact that the land was generally given to the family unit, and women not only worked on it, but could dispose of the products of their labor, and did not have to depend on their husbands for support. The partnership of the wife in land possession was so well understood in England that, quote, when a villein couple married, it was common for the man to come and turn the land back to the lord, taking it again in both his name and that wife. Furthermore, since work on the servile farm was organized on a subsistence basis, the sexual division of labor in it was less pronounced and less discriminating than in capitalist farm. In the feudal village, no social separation existed between the production of goods and the reproduction of the workforce. All work contributed to the family's sustenance. Women worked in the fields in addition to raising children, cooking, washing, spinning, and keeping an herb garden. Their domestic activities were not devalued and did not involve different social relations from those of men, as they would later on, in a money economy, when housework would cease to be viewed as real work. If we also take into account that in medieval society, collective relations prevailed over familial ones, and most of the tasks that female serfs performed, washing, spinning, harvesting, and tending to animals on the commons, were done in cooperation with other women, we then realize that the sexual division of labor, far from being a source of isolation, was a source of power and protection for women. It was the basis for an intense female sociality and solidarity that enabled women to stand up to men despite the fact that the church preached women's submission to men, and canonic law sanctified the husband's right to beat his wife. The position of women on the feudal manor cannot be treated, however, as if it were a static reality, for the power of women and their relations with men were, at all times, determined by the struggles which their communities fought against the landlords and the changes that these struggles produced in the master-servant relation. All right, now we're on to the struggle of the commons, which is the third section here. By the end of the 14th century, the revolt of the peasantry against the landlords had become endemic, massified, and frequently armed. However, the organizational strength that the peasants demonstrated in this period was the outcome of a long conflict that, more or less openly, ran through the Middle Ages. Contrary to the schoolbook portrait of feudal society as a static world, in which each estate accepted its designated place in the social order, the picture that emerges from a study of the feudal manner is rather that of relentless class struggle. As the records of the English manorial courts indicate, the medieval village was the theater of daily warfare. At times, this reached moments of great tension when the villagers killed the bailiff or attacked their lord's castle. Most frequently, however, it consisted of an endless litigation by which the serfs tried to limit the abuses of the lords, fix their burdens, and reduce the many tributes to which they owed them in exchange for the use of the land. The main objective of the serfs was to keep hold of their surplus labor and products and broaden the sphere of their economic and juridical rights. These two aspects of servile struggle were closely connected, as many obligations issued from the serfs' legal status. Thus, in 13th century England, both on the lay and ecclesiastical estates, male peasants were frequently fined for claiming that they were not serfs but free men, a challenge that could result in a bitter litigation pursued even by appeal to the royal courts. Peasants were also fined for refusing to bake their bread at the oven of the lords, or grind their grain or olives at their mills, which allowed them to avoid the onerous taxes that the lords imposed for the use of these facilities. However, the most important terrain of servile struggle was the work that, on certain days of the week, the serfs had to carry out on the land of the lords. These labor services were the burdens that most immediately affected the serfs' lives, and through the 13th century they were the central issue in the servile struggle for freedom. The serfs' attitude towards the corvée, as labor's services were also called, transpires through the entries in the books of the manorial courts, where the penalties imposed the tenants were recorded. By the mid-13th century, the evidence speaks for a massive withdrawal of labor. The tenants would neither go nor send their children to work on the land of the lords when summoned at harvest time, or they would go to the fields too late so that the crops would spoil, or they would work sloppily, taking long breaks and generally maintaining an insubordinate attitude. Hence the lord's need for constant and close supervision and vigilance as evidenced by this recommendation. Quote, "Let the bailiff and the messer be all the time with the plowmen to see that they do their work well and thoroughly, and at the end of the day see how much they have done. And because customary servants neglect their work, it is necessary to guard against their fraud. Further, it is necessary that they are overseen often, and beside the bailiff must oversee all, that they work well, and if they do not do well, let them be reproved." A similar situation is portrayed in Pierre Plowman, circa 1362 to 1370, William Langland's allegorical poem that in one scene the laborers who had been busy in the morning passed the afternoon sitting and singing, and in another one, idle people flocked in at harvest time seeking, quote, "no deed to do but to drink and to sleep," end quote. As the obligation to provide military services at wartime was strongly resisted, as H.S. Bennett reports, force was always needed to recruit in the English villages, and a medieval commander rarely managed to keep his men at war, for those who enlisted deserted at the first opportunity after pocketing their pay. Exemplary are the payrolls of the Scottish campaign of the year 1300, which indicate that while 16,000 recruits had been ordered to enlist in June, by mid-July only 7,600 could be mustered, and this was, quote, the crest of the wave. By August, little more than 3,000 remained, end quote. As a result, increasingly, the king had to rely on pardoned criminals and outlaws to bolster his army. Another source of conflict was the use of non-cultivated lands, including woods, lakes, hills, which the serfs considered a collective property. Quote, "We can go to the woods," the serfs declared in mid-12th century English chronicle, "and take what we want, take fish from the fish pond and game from the forests. We'll have our will in the woods, the waters, and the meadows," end quote. Still, the most bitter struggles were those against the taxes and burdens that issued from the jurisdictional power of the nobility. These included the manamorta, which is a tax that the lord levied when the serf died; the mercheta, the tax on marriage that increased when a serf married someone from another manor; the heriot, an insurance tax paid by the heir of a deceased serf for the right to gain entry to his holdings, usually consisting of the best breast of the deceased; and, worst of all, the tallage, a sum of money arbitrarily decided that the lords could exact at will. Last but not least, with the tilth, which is a tenth of the peasant income that was extracted by the clergy, but usually collected by the lords in the clergy's name. Together with the labor service, these taxes against nature and freedom were the most resented among the feudal dues for not being compensated by any allotments of lands or other benefits. They revealed all the arbitrariness of feudal power. Thus, they were strenuously resisted. Typical was the attitude of the serfs of the monks of Dunstable, who in 1299 declared that, quote, they would rather go down to hell than be beaten in this matter of tillage, and after much controversy, they brought their freedom from it, end quote. Similarly, in 1280, the serfs of Hedon, a village of Yorkshire, let it be understood that if the tillage was not abolished, they would rather go to live in the nearby towns of Rivenseard and Hull, which have good harbourers growing daily and no tillage. These were no idle threats. The flight to the city or town was a constant component of servile struggle, so that, again and again, on some English manors, quote, men are reported to be fugitives and dwelling in the neighbouring towns, and although order is given that they be brought back, the town continues to shelter them, end quote. To these forms of open confrontation, we must add the manifold invisible forms of resistance, for which subjugated peasants have been famous in all times and places. Quote, foot dragging, dissimulation, false compliance, feigned ignorance, desertion, pilfering, smuggling, poaching, end quote. These everyday forms of resistance, stubbornly carried on over the years without which no adequate account of class relations is possible, were rife in the medieval village. This may explain the meticulousness with which the servile burdens were specified in the manorial records. To quote, for instance, the manorial records often do not say simply that a man must plow, sow, and harrow 1 acre of the Lord's land. They say he must plow it with so many oxen as he has in his plow, harrow it with his own horse and sack. Services, too, were remembered in minute detail. We must remember the Copmans of Elton, who administered that they were bound to stack the Lord's hay in his meadow and again in his barnyard, but maintained that they were not bound in custom to load it into carts to be carried from the first place to the second, end quote. In some areas of Germany, where the dues included yearly donations of eggs and poultry, tests of fitness were devised in order to prevent the serfs from handing down to the lords the worst amongst their chickens. Quote, the hen then is placed in front of a fence or a gate. If frightened, she has the strength to fly or scramble over. The bailiff must accept her. She is fit. A gosling again must be accepted if it is mature enough to pluck grass without losing its balance and sitting down ignoramulously, end quote. Such minute regulations testified to the difficulty of reinforcing the medieval social contract and the variety of battlefields available to the combative tenant or village. Servile duties and rights were regulated by customs, but their interpretation too was an object of much dispute. The invention of traditions was a common practice in the confrontation between landlords and peasants, as both would try to redefine them or forget them until the time came toward the middle of the 13th century when the lords put them down in writing. All right, last section, the fourth section, liberty and social division. Politically, the first outcome of the servile struggles was the concession to many villages, particularly in northern Italy and France, of privileges and charters that fixed the burdens and granted an element of autonomy in the running of the village community, providing at times for true forms of local government. These charters stipulated the fines that were to be meted down by the manorial courts and established rules for juridical proceedings, thus eliminating or reducing the possibility of arbitrary arrests and other abuses. They also lengthened the serfs' duty to enlist as soldiers and abolished or fixed the tillage. Often they granted the liberty to hold stallage, that is, to sell goods at the local market, and more rarely, the right to alienate land. Between 1177 and 1350, in Lorraine alone, 280 charters were conceded. However, the most important resolution of the master-serf conflict was the commutation of labor services with money payments, money rents, money taxes, that placed the feudal relation on a more contractual basis. With this monumentous development, serfdom practically ended, but like many workers' victories, which only in part satisfy the original demands, commutation too co-opted the goals of the struggle, functioning as a means of social division and contributing to the disintegration of the feudal village. To the well-to-do peasants who, possessing large tracts of land, could earn enough money to buy their blood and employ other laborers, commutation must have appeared as a great step on the road to economic and personal independence. For the lords lessened their control over their tenants when they no longer depended directly on their work. But the majority of poorer peasants, who possessed only a few acres of land barely sufficient for their survival, lost even the little they had. Compelled to pay their dues in money, they went into chronic debt, borrowing against future harvest, a process that eventually caused many to lose their land. As a result, by the 13th century, when commutation spread throughout Western Europe, social division in the rural areas deepened, and part of the peasantry underwent a process of proletarization. As Bronislaw Gerjemic, something, writes, quote, 13th century documents contain increasing amounts of information about landless peasants who managed to eke out a living on the margins of village life by tending to flocks. One finds increasing numbers of gardeners, landless or almost landless peasants, who earned the living by hiring out their services. In southern France, the brassiers lived entirely by selling the strength of their arms and hiring themselves out to richer peasants or landed gentry. From the beginning of the 14th century to the tax registers show a marked increase in the number of impoverished peasants who appear in these documents as indigents, poor men, or even beggars, end quote. The commutation to money rent had two other negative consequences. First, it made it more difficult for the producers to measure their exploitation because as soon as the labor services were commuted into money payments, the peasants could no longer differentiate between the work that they did for themselves and that which they did for the landlords. Commutation also made it possible for the now free tenants to employ and exploit other workers, so that, in a further development, it promoted the growth of independent peasant property, turning the old self-employing possessors of land into a capitalist tenant. The monetization of economic life, then, did not benefit all people. Contrary to what is claimed by supporters of the market economy, who welcome it as the creation of a new common, replacing land bondage and introducing a social life, the criteria of objectivity, rationality, and even personal freedom. With the spread of monetary relations, values certainly changed, even among the clergy, who began to reconsider the Aristotelian doctrine of the sterility of money, and not coincidentally to revise its views concerning the redeeming quality of charity to the poor. But their effects were destructive and divisive. Money and the market began to split the peasantry by transforming income differences into class differences, and by producing a mass of poor people who could survive only on the basis of periodic donations. To the growing influence of money, we must also attribute the systematic attack to which Jews were subjugated, starting in the 12th century, and the steady deterioration of their legal and social status in the same period. There is, in fact, a revealing correlation between the displacement of the Jews by Christian competitors as moneylenders to the kings, popes, and the higher clergy, and the new discriminatory rules, e.g., the wearing of distinctive clothing, that were adopted by the clergy against them, as well as their expulsion from England and France. Degraded by the church, further separated by the Christian population, and forced to confine their moneylending, one of the few occupations available to them, to their village level, the Jews became an easy target for indebted peasants who often vented on them their anger against the rich. Women, too, in all classes, were most negatively affected by the increasing commercialization of life, for their access to property and income was further reduced by it. In the Italian commercial towns, women lost their rights to inherit a third of their husband's property. In the rural areas, they were further excluded from land possession, especially when single or widowed. As a result, by the 13th century, they were leading the movement away from the country, being the most numerous among the rural immigrants to the towns. And by the 15th century, women formed a large percentage of the population of the cities. Here, most of them lived in poor conditions, holding low-paid jobs as maids, hucksters, retail traders, often fined for a lack of license. Spinsters, members of the lower guilds, and prostitutes. However, living in the urban centers among the most combative part of the medieval population gave them a new social autonomy. City laws did not free women. Few could afford to buy the city freedom, as the privileges connected with city life were called. But in the city, women's subordination to male tutelage was reduced, as they could now live alone or with their children as heads of families, or could form new communities, often sharing their dwellings with other women. While usually the poorest members of urban society in time, women gained access to many occupations that later would be considered male jobs. In the medieval towns, women worked as smiths, butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, hat makers, ale brewers, wool carders, and retailers. In Frankfurt, there were approximately 200 occupations in which women participated between 1300 and 1500. In England, 72 out of 85 guilds included women among their members. Some guilds, including silk making, were dominated by them. In others, female employment was as high as that of the men. By the 14th century, women were also becoming school teachers as well as doctors and surgeons, and were beginning to compete with university-trained men, gaining at times a high reputation. 16 female doctors, among them several Jewish women specialized in surgeries and of eye therapy, were hired in the 14th century by the municipality of Frankfurt, which, like other city administrations, offered its population a system of public health care. Female doctors, as well as midwives, or what was known as sage femme, were dominant in obstetrics, either in the pay of the city governments or supporting themselves with the compensation they received from their patients. After the cesarean cut was introduced in the 13th century, female obstetrics were the only ones who practiced it. As women gained more autonomy, their presence in social life began to be recorded more frequently in the sermons of the priests who scolded their indiscipline, in the records of the tribunals where they went to denounce those who abused them, in the city ordinances regulating prostitution, among the thousands of non-combatants who followed the armies, and above all, in the new popular movements, especially that of the heretics. We will see later the role that women played in the heretic movement. Here, suffice it to say that, in response to the new female independence, we see the beginning of a misogynist backlash, most evident in the satires of the Fabuleux where we find the first traces of what historians have defined as the struggles for the breaches. End lesson. End reading. So,
Brava,
can't hear.
brava,
Oh, there we
very
go.
good.
There we go.
Brava.
So I hopefully that sounded better. I'm not too sure if it did on your side, but
It sounded
the
great.
mic and all. All right,
Yeah.
as long as you can understand what the hell I'm saying.
Hmm. Oh yeah, this is very interesting, and I'm looking forward to what she was saying about heretics. That sounds very fun.
Oh yeah, this is gonna get good. So
Ooh.
I'm just gonna change this. Hold on, I'm gonna change it to.
Okay.
Oh, and if you didn't know what
I
it
should
was,
have
this is
mentioned this
just.
before. I'm sorry. I should have mentioned this before. We're on portrait mode, so they are
Oh no.
sideways. I'm so sorry. It
Well, oh
would
well.
not let me
Just
share
turn
the
your head.
screen in
That's
landscape. It would
okay.
not let
Just
me do
turn your
that.
head if you want to read this. This is just a farmer's preparing the soil for sowing. Access to land was the foundation of the power of the serfs. English miniature, circa 1340. Oh, there.
Very nice.
Just turn your head. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that works too, right? And then I've got this, which is female masons constructing a city wall in France, 15th century. So these are
Nice.
actual like historical paintings and whatnot.
Yeah.
Ah, here, stupid thing. So yeah, so just a little bit of a history lesson before we get into the burnings.
Oh, I'm not looking
Which
forward
is
to that.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting knowing that like women were the only ones doing the birth, like sort of the birth and the cesarean cuts and stuff like that, right? They
It's
were
like
like, yeah,
obstetrics should
this
be a
is what.
female thing or something. I mean, that is only so incredibly sensible to me. I don't.
Well, exactly, right? And that was one of the biggest problems, right? Was because it
Mm,
was women who knew what they were doing, and the
yeah.
men were in the field. And if you're going to expand and you need population control of that, you need to be able to control that aspect of reproduction, the reproduction of the labor force, right?
No, yeah, I know, I know, I
Yeah,
know.
so we're
But
going to be
like
getting into that.
women, a lot of women want to have babies. I don't like. I don't understand the like a level of aggression and like domineering. I don't. You know what I mean? Like, why masculinity is so fragile? It's the question of my life. I don't understand it.
Well, I know that in different periods there's like usually like it's like way up and down. Like right now there's a lot of people who don't want kids, but why do they do not want kids? They don't want kids because the world's so fucked up and
Yeah,
it costs a lot of money.
because you literally can't afford them.
Yeah, and so you have the people going off about, oh, population is crashing and da, 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 da. It's like, yeah, what did you
That's
expect?
also what happens when you have, economic stability and everyone is like the population just drops when you don't need people to work the
Well, the
farm.
thing, well, yeah, that's another thing too. When you give autonomy to women's reproduction,
Right.
usually it
It's a
evens
good
out the way it's
sign.
supposed to. But the thing is, in an economy where it's a capitalist economy, you have to, and you're putting money into like social security, you have to keep
I
growing
know.
indefinitely.
The
The thing is,
perpetual growth,
it's
yeah.
only a finite planet.
Which by the
How
way,
much
right.
population do you want on it? We already
Population
overtake most of the world. All the animals don't
perpetual
have any fucking
growth
space to live.
is just not possible.
Yeah,
You can't perpetual growth is not possible.
exactly. Any idiot could
A
can
child
understand
could
that if you
see
know
that.
math.
Yeah. A child could understand that
Yeah,
everything has a limit,
not
everything.
everything can grow indefinitely, but that's what our economy is based on, which is why it's unsustainable. For one,
I know.
two, it's like, is it really a problem? Maybe we shouldn't be having so many kids that
Well,
we
like,
are
okay.
overtaking the earth so much that it's gonna like start like there's not gonna be any enough to feed or like enough room. Like already we're losing animals. So
Well, like when you
maybe if
prop up the economy and you have all this stuff running, and then all of a sudden there are fewer people, is there not more for everybody?
exactly,
Wouldn't it be nice
exactly.
if
This
we
is
could
not
do
a
that
problem. The
without having
only
to
reason
kill
why it's a
anyone?
problem, the only reason why it's a problem is if depending on where the population is increasing and decreasing, because they need to have certain amount of population in, like, say, the empires states, and then certain population in the third world where they're like being pretty much slavery.
Yeah,
It
well,
is like pretty
they're
much being
worried
slave,
about their bubble bursting, is what they
right?
are.
They need to
Because I
have
mean,
this
think
is why
about
you have to
this.
kill You sterilize indigenous people too because you need to get rid of them. So it's a population control thing, right?
Think about
So
it
every single
from,
time when I
yeah.
hear the right wing fucking talking point of, oh, the population crash, I'm like, well, good. Like, it's not that where it's that crashing. We're still like dominant species of the world. Come on now.
And like look at historically unprecedented levels of population. Absolutely, completely, and
Exactly.
just
We don't need to keep growing,
ridiculously unprecedented levels
right?
of population right now. And the fact that most of them are older and will
Mm-hmm.
naturally just pass away is
Yeah,
okay. Like
it's
that's
okay. It doesn't exactly. It's
that's not a
okay.
disaster. I don't see
People
the,
are still having kids. It's not like everyone
right.
stopped.
Yes, I had too. And
I had
if
one
you made
even,
it
and it's
easier,
me.
yeah. If you make it easier for people who want to do so, then they will.
Yeah,
Is that not the how everything works?
yeah. Well, as we will see later on, definitely later on in this book when we get into the expansion period where we sort of expand into the new world and how
Mm.
it was like the whole genocide of the new
Oh, the
world
racial
is
stuff is going to make me
basically
squirm in my chair.
basically
Oh,
the
I
witch
hate it.
burnings was a beta test. It was a beta test. Sorry, a beta test for that. You could see the
Ugh.
similarities, and a lot of the times, what did they were having trouble with keeping the population of slaves because women would be killing their infants because they didn't want them to live. Right, and they were trying to force them to like reproduce. Yeah, it's horrible. It's gonna get real, real up in here when we get to that point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like it's so. Oh, wait, wait, wait. But yeah, that has not changed. It's just that you can't like full on say, "Oh, we need you to portion to populate for us, please." You can't do that, right? So you have this, you have this stupid right wing talking point about, "Oh, spooky, spooky. It's gonna be all bad. Oh, be scared. This population crash." It's like, shut up, just shut up. It's
Yeah,
not an
no.
issue.
Okay, and look at like the baby boom is what we're comparing this to. Like seriously, we were supposed to like what, have another one of those?
Yeah, no, thank you.
That doesn't even make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
That was a moment in time. It passed, you know?
Deal with it.
Yeah.
And
And
then
I
they go
think,
off
I don't
in
know this,
America,
but I
right?
want to say I read this somewhere that historically birth rates are about normal,
Yeah,
you know?
bitch, it's not getting bigger. That's the problem.
Right.
You always have to expand, 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 right?
Which, if you look
This,
at the population, it was stable for a long time.
well, that yeah, when women have control over their reproduction, usually it stabilizes itself out. What was I saying? Oh, I was gonna say something. Oh no, I forget. Oh damn it.
Well,
Okay,
and
I was
we
going
don't
to
have to have 10 babies because half of them don't die anymore.
right that
So
that
that's
too.
nice. As I say,
Well,
I've had
partly, but
two, and I've had that thought, like, really, 50%? Which one do I choose? Like, I'm not even.
yeah, right. And also, like one of the reasons why the whole witch burnings popped off as well was due to the fact of the Black Death,
Uh-huh.
right?
That was
And
14th century, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, around that time, around late 13th, I thought maybe
I
14th.
don't
We'll get
know.
to that. We'll
I
get to
don't.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll be
Yeah.
getting to that. Don't you worry, because it is what's popped off this sort of because there was a lot of enclosure of the commons and which is basically another a word for privatization of lands,
Yeah.
community, right? And
Yeah.
so which was happening, and then the Black Plague, right, happened. So the people that were alive had the ability to demand more for their work, for their labor,
Hmm.
because they
Right.
weren't competing with the workforce. There was no one
Right.
else to
They
work.
couldn't just fire
They
them and
could,
go to the
yeah, they
next
could be like, you
guy.
want me to work for you? You're gonna have to pay me this,
You're
right?
right. Mm-hmm.
So that which gave took the power out of the lords and the merchants or mercantile class hands. They didn't like that.
Which,
So
that's the part that pisses me off. What do you mean you don't like it?
yeah,
You're outnumbered. Sorry. What?
yeah,
What? The entitlement of these people just
I
aggravates the
know. Oh,
snot
I
out of
know.
me.
The birth of capitalism is definitely not something to be proud of. Like when you
Ugh.
see the look at the history of how it came to be.
Which reminds me,
Like,
I had a funny thought this morning. Like, I've seen in a couple of places people talking about how the Vikings supposedly discovered America, which is named after an Italian guy, by the way, um, before,
the
anyone
fact,
else. And
yeah,
I'm just like, do they want to give this, like, the people that I'm hearing this kind of from is also is making me wonder this. Do they want to give this to the Vikings because they're white?
I don't know. I think it's weird. I think it's weird that people claim to who discovered it. The indigenous people living there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
People were
And it's
living
like
there.
the white people want all the genocide all to themselves, ourselves. What?
Yeah,
And it's not
they
even
really
true
do.
anyway.
They
We
really
bought
do.
at least half of it from the Spanish or something,
And the
right?
thing is, too, it's like in the idea that there was nobody around, it was all open land. No, it wasn't. You killed them all.
Oh no, no, we talked about this last time too. Oh my god.
Like
Oh,
what the
and it
hell? Like
just
what are you talking? Because there were actual like little empires forming in like
mm,
not just the Incas and the Mayas, but there were
oh no,
different
there were
actual civilization like bigger ones coming up within
yeah.
different parts and different eras on
One of the
Americas.
biggest of
But
them was
the reason
centered
why they
in the
never
Midwest,
became
not far from where I'm
expansionists,
from. Yeah. Like if
the
you look
reason
up
why
one
is
of the
because there were
biggest
so
yeah,
many tribal nations that
yeah.
they didn't have the ability to expand because they resisted that expansion, and so it would collapse because once an expansionist civilization can't expand, eventually it will collapse in on itself.
They
So that's
literally
what
had to
kept
invoke
happening,
God.
and that's why there was never like this big empire, was because they were in England. There wasn't that many people because it was really populated in the Americas. And so when they were able to expand without much resistance, because the pockets of people lived so separate from each other,
Mm,
and the only reason why they were able to get a foothold was because of the plague with the
hmm.
fleas and stuff, and killed all the natives who didn't have an immune system to it. So they were able to empty
Right.
the land, a lot of the land, and kill them off. Then it helped. It went along.
Yeah.
It's the first actual known instance of using biological warfare that there is.
Yeah, alfalfa, that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Cahokia was part of the larger Mississippian culture all over the southeast and Midwest. Yeah, yeah. And that was in Missouri, right? One of the biggest cities of that was on the whole continent, and it was like in the Middle
yeah,
Ages, I think, right? It
yeah.
was like it fell before the Spanish got here, but like, yeah, they have real empires and stuff.
Yeah, they had empires and stuff like that, but they just didn't they weren't able to expand like they would have needed to because of the how populated it was and how many nation tribes there were who resisted and came together to resist the overtaking. So yeah, I mean, if white people want to make fight for the claims of their genocide, okay, but I mean, I wouldn't be proud of that.
No, no, no. Except,
Maybe
they're
if you were
doing
a
a
big
lot of
capitalist,
spinning.
but people aren't. You're like the
They're
people
doing
that
a
are like
lot
going
of
off about this shit.
reframing of history lately, I've noticed.
Yeah, yeah,
So
there is a lot of that.
I'm not a fan of Vikings personally because, I'm on the
Neither am
Celtic
I.
side. I'm on the Celtic side of that whole, fracas, right?
I just
I
don't care. I don't think that. I
power to
don't think
you,
that.
power to you. I'm a history nerd, so I have to pick
I'm
sides
a
in that
history
one.
nerd, and that's what. But the thing is, I don't. I'm not someone who likes to who thinks focusing on national identity
It's
is something that is
it's
it
my
makes no
version of
sense.
a
It's
football
arbitrary.
team, I guess. Because like it's
What?
all a thousand. It's my version of a football team, I guess. It all happened 1,000 years ago anyway. It's not like
Exactly. But
there's
to sort
anything
of
to
focus
root
on the
for.
nationality of it is what kind of like, okay, buddy,
No, no, no,
right?
no. I just
Yeah.
have my own, like, I don't know. I literally am just, that's my background. So when it comes to like listening to stuff like that from other parts of the world, I'm with you. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. My family comes
Uh,
from Ireland and
yeah.
mostly and France. That's about it.
Eventually, if you follow like North American history back far enough, it becomes European history. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Interesting enough, like even like you'd be surprised how many people think the potato famine was like just a natural occurrence. You'd be surprised. Even people that are Irish background. So
Yeah,
people so
yeah.
nationalist doesn't mean that you're actually correct in what you think. Like,
No, no, I know, I
you
know.
might
I
have
need
your
to
whole
like,
history. Your whole history might be just some bullshit.
no, I like I say, I consider it sort of like following a football team, and like not even as passionate as some people get about that. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not Irish. I am Scottish, and I've literally
Right.
everyone literally the next thing out of their mouth is whatever, same thing. I'm like, come on now, that's not fair. I beg to differ, but that's as far as that goes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, see, yeah, I'm not really focused on any sort of national identity as more as collective history of the different
yeah,
differences. Yeah, and how
it's sort
like
of my starting point that I branch out from. I
yeah,
think everybody
yeah,
has their own little
I get it.
like special to their heart spot starting point.
Yeah, yeah. This
Um,
identity with Roman too, the Roman Empire is annoying as well. The guys
is
that are
that
like
even a
all about the Roman
nationality
Empire, I'm like,
anymore?
oh yeah,
No, no, no,
give it a
wait. Like,
look.
how you like? Okay, I'm not like I don't know. I don't know. There's a whole lot of like implications to that one as well. That
Hmm.
maybe you might even if you somehow were of Roman descent, which would make you Italian. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I
Like,
think so.
yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody of that
I
would
mean, the
be.
Roman Empire did expand quite a bit.
No, I know, I know, I know. I'm just saying, how would you even identify as ethnically Roman? Like, what even is that?
I don't even know if they do. I think it's mostly just that they like just they think of it in awe, like with these like
Well,
a lot of it because it's so masculine kind of identity to it, right? So you got all these
okay,
like
yeah. I mean,
I mean, oh, it's so masculine as they bang other men. It's a joke.
right? Oh, or those guys they were all crazy and like lead
Seems a
poisoned,
little
I guess.
fruity to
So
me, but okay.
yeah, no, everything I hear about Rome basically just tells me I'm so happy I don't live there.
Right.
No,
Oh, damn.
and it's not like that. It's not like that. Like I say, it's just like I consider it sort of an extension of the history of where I live now.
Hmm.
Because it
Yeah.
all connects back directly to that.
Well,
But
it does. I mean,
what
the only
one
reason
of the
why like we gained a lot like feudalism, all that came out of the fall of the Roman Empire.
right, 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 and that's funny because I was going to ask you about this actually. It sounds almost like the peasant revolts might have been sort of an early version of like the Revolutionary era, like I
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
500 years later or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where the whole
There's always been a revolutionary struggles against
yeah, yeah, and it
the
just like kind of peaks back up above the surface every
yeah,
few hundred
and then it
years. It's so
collapses. It peaks,
interesting.
collapses, and the reason why empires like that our expansion is collapsed too is because they didn't have the ability of power. Like the animal power is all they had. They didn't have mechanical knowledge. Now we have
Mm,
like the gas and the oil. So we've been
yeah,
able to expand, but then again, you can only expand so far because this is a finite world. So
yeah.
eventually, it will have to collapse because you cannot keep growing indefinitely. That's the
Also,
thing
isn't that
that
just
just
how physics
boggles my
works or
mind.
something?
But
Isn't that just physics too? I mean,
yeah, it is. Yeah, not the like really smart physics where you really get in depth. This is
no,
basic. This is
yeah.
basic thing.
I am not a physicist, and I make no claims of that.
I
So
study
even if
physics
I know that, yeah,
like on my own, because like to a lot of the things too, you have to like, especially when it comes to like environmental issues, you have to like have an understanding of physics. With Earth dynamics and all that. So
uh
I've got textbooks of like Earth dynamic physics I bought at from Cambridge University to
oh
study.
wow, oh
Yeah.
wow,
Well, it's important to understand how it all sort of like how things function. If you don't understand
yeah.
something, like a lot of people like have this debate about how bad, say, the climate crisis is. I say it's pretty bad, but they and how bad it is. Well, the only way you can really know is to study thermodynamics and figure that out yourself. How it actually works is because like, we hear a lot of people say, like, oh, it's about the science. Listen to the science. No, what they're actually talking about usually is listen to the scientists, not the science. So you're just getting people telling you what it is. Well, probably the best thing to do is have an understanding of how you
Yeah.
would actually go about knowing that information. You don't need to know like just a basic idea would be important, right? Then you could have a better understanding and grasp. That would be listening to the science, is looking at the
Well, see,
science.
okay, see, some people need someone to tell them those things, and I hate to sound like a snob because I'm talking about myself. Uh, I really applaud people who are good educators about, complex stuff like that. And I want to
Mhm.
step in for a second and defend them because if you
Yeah,
do that well, that's great. Because I was just sitting here thinking that that might be a good thing to do is to somehow take these ideas and make them, a little more easily understandable for
yeah, for
people
people.
who, not even to say that anybody is stupid, but sometimes your mind just doesn't run that
Well,
way. You know what
also
I
too,
mean?
because people work. People work a lot.
Yeah,
People
that
are
too.
tired. People are like there's so much things and that's by design that way, right? So you don't have the ability
Yeah.
to like
Right.
go out and learn things just on your own, just out of curiosity's sake,
Right. So
right?
I'm inclined to support people who make it their mission to make that information accessible to more people.
Yeah.
Um, I
After
have
this, you and I
read
can read
I
the
have
textbook.
read some
There might
wordy
be a little dry.
I have read some wordy psychology and philosophy books. So I'm not, it's just totally different animal than
Yeah, no,
physics.
especially philosophy because a lot of it is really I find just it's just so pompous.
Well, Roy Porter's not. You should try reading some of his stuff. He's really
Roy
good.
Pointer, okay. I'm talking
Roy
about
Porter, yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
things like of like uh postmodernism is the worst philosophy
Oh, I don't read any of that shit. Why would you torment your brain with that shit?
because it's good to understand what well because what they're saying like these words exist but they don't make sense,
So
right? So if you understand the words and you can understand that they don't make sense, it's good to counteract that and call them
I
out.
guess. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not saying that it's not. I get more than
It's just
enough of
navel
that.
gazing.
I feel
It's
like,
navel gazing, and it's based.
yeah,
To break it down, it's just based on subjectivity and thinking that your own subject. You're so narcissistic that you think your own subjectivity is what creates the world. There you go.
yeah,
Basic breakdown of
yeah,
postmodernism for you, right there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you want to live in denial of the fact that there is material existence beyond your
Yeah, the only
perception.
existence is what you create in your own mind, and that's what creates existence. So
And it's
basically,
so
everything
scary
is
to me.
you're gone.
Yeah. And it's so
You're
scary
not
to me
though.
how many people love the fact that they've come up with all this fancy philosophy to justify not believing in anything but yourself.
Yeah. Sorry, but the world exists outside of you. It does.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
then you know what?
And
It's not you making the world exist. It's the world existing, and then you interpreting it with the material
yeah.
object reality of your
Yeah.
brain. That's all.
Right. Right. And it's just this so basic, like the world existed before you, not the other way around.
Right? Right? It's just
Uh,
so entire. It's just this sort of philosophy of the era,
it,
though.
it's
Really, it's so
it's
narcissistic and so self-isolated and
it
just so
is,
navel gazing.
if you'll forgive me for gritting Freudian again, so repressed, like that's like toddler level thinking, right?
Yeah.
That's like lacking object permanence. Seriously.
Yeah. No, it's
Seriously.
true.
If I
It's
can't
true.
see it, it's not there.
Then it doesn't exist. Yeah.
I've met 2-year-olds that know better than that.
Basically, yeah, I know. That's what it really like when you go down to the level of like the first sort of tenets of postmodernism. That is on the basis of postmodernism. Is
Yeah.
on that
Which
is that
is
you as
another
a subject
reason.
create the world
And they're right. And
by
that's another
existing.
reason why I've stopped arguing with those people, honestly. And I stopped reading that shit because I don't want to have an argument with a toddler. That's not a good idea. That's not how you deal
Yeah.
with toddlers, right?
No.
That's
Yeah.
not how you deal with them. It's not a productive thing at all. So I just generally don't do that anymore.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, there's no point really, but it's good to be able to make it clear for people who are confused
oh
and
yeah,
think that these people are saying anything of substance because they're really
right.
not.
Well, it
They're really
calls to
not.
the ego. It calls to the ego.
Yeah, it is all about being. Yeah, it's all
But
narcissistic. It's all
everyone has an
egotism.
ego,
Hmm?
right? Everyone has an ego, and a lot of us are
Yeah,
really insecure. So it's just one of those same damn things, that cult thing where they always, they
yeah.
pick up.
It's just taking your head and shoving it so far up your ass you can't hear anyone else's.
Right.
Anyone else,
But
and only you exist as
it
you walk
reminds me
around
of
with
my
it.
favorite bumper sticker where like intelligence is like an all-terrain vehicle. It does not mean that you won't get stuck. It means that you get stuck in more inaccessible places.
Yeah,
Because like most people who join cults apparently are like they tend to be educated and intelligent and whatever. Because it takes a lot of brains to convince yourself of that nonsense. You know what I mean? It's so
yeah.
ironic and funny to me. I've met so
It's
many of
weird.
those
That is
people.
weird. That
I've
is
met so
weird.
many of those people. It's that's.
Well, intelligence doesn't really take into account like thinking for yourself, like critical thinking, right?
Hmm.
It really doesn't. Not the way that we define intelligence, anyways. As
No,
as
I
a
actually think
collective
of
society.
intelligence as like adaptability.
Yeah,
Like how much can you take what's actually in front of you and work with it to get, your goals accomplished? You know what I mean?
hmm,
Well, do you actually engage with the stuff? Like,
yeah,
how
right,
else would
right.
you? How
That
else
too.
would you measure that?
Yeah,
Really? You're going to sit here and give me a vocabulary test? Okay. Is the thing we need to engage with a room full of people?
yeah. Well,
If
that's the
so, then a
thing.
vocabulary test is relevant. Otherwise, you
Well,
know what I'm
that's the thing.
saying? Like,
That's why it's postmodern and it's pompous because they're using a bunch of big words to make themselves sound smart,
oh, I know relevancy is irrelevant. Oh, I know. Oh,
right?
I know.
Yeah,
I know that the idea, just a very basic idea of there being any kind of objective anything, is
yeah.
objectively wrong, which is hilarious. That made me laugh. I'm like, I realized that. I'm like, wait, that's not what they're saying, is it? Wow, that's so stupid.
Yeah, so stupid. Well,
There's
yeah,
objectively
yeah,
no objective reality. What?
yeah.
What? Yeah, that's not
Sorry,
even
I'm
like
a
okay. I do
I'm
read a
all
lot of
about
philosophy.
dialectical materialism. I believe in the object reality, like matter, things you can touch, feel,
You
things
tell
that
me it
like
doesn't matter. Okay, stop eating.
yeah, right. See how long you go. Well, you're
Mm-hmm.
just supposedly this homunculus in this meat sack, basically, which is like
And you,
saying that you have soul.
oh my god.
It's like very
Which
religious in
like
nature, fervent religious in nature.
even
This
it
postmodernly, it
is,
really
but it's
is.
also nihilistic because even if you believe in a soul, the meat sack is like sacred or some shit, right?
Yeah. Well,
Come
no,
on. I'm
you can
sorry.
transmute. No, you can transmute into machine because we are the gods of the machine.
Oh
You see how
right,
that works?
yeah.
All ties in
Wait,
transhumanism.
so
Yeah.
when did we wait? So we invented our own souls then? Is there no deity in this religion?
I
Serious
don't even know.
hypothetical.
I don't know where there is no. Everything's a circle. I've heard this too
Ugh,
from some postmodern. It's a circle. Nothing begins and nothing
ugh,
ends. Which kind of makes
ugh.
sense by the way we think, because we don't know we about the universe. It always existed. But that doesn't make sense. But so it kind of I can see where they come from that. Why everything is a circle, but still, like your soul. No, it's just your brain interpreting the objective reality around you. And once that's dead, so is your quote unquote soul. But that's okay because you disintegrate and you decompose, and then you go into the earth, and then something eats you. You become part of that. You just different matter, different matter. You're just not sentient at this point.
I realize I'm just to clarify something. I do believe in something such a thing as like perhaps a soul, but I don't believe in life after death. So that might be weird, but it
I
doesn't
that
matter. I just like I don't want, but so consequently, I don't want to just write off all religious thinking. You know what I mean? I can't just hand wave those people anymore. I used to be able to do that. Be like, oh, that's a religious idea. Oh, forget it.
Yeah,
And
I'm a hand waver. I'm sorry.
no, 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 it's fine. It doesn't offend me. I just want to like clarify that for like
Yeah.
full disclosure.
Mhm.
And but like I don't believe in an afterlife, so like
Yeah, yeah.
it's not like there's a lot on the line for me in this argument anyway. I'm still 100% in the here and now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
I'm very, very analytical the way that I think. So I don't understand if there's no fact. If there's no fact to prove it, then I
mhm,
can't believe it. If I
mhm.
don't have like actual objective fact that you could tell me and show me, then I'm not going to do anything based
Well,
on
and it's not as if
conjecture.
there's not enough to do in the material realm. Goodness knows.
I don't know. I just think that it's weird that people think that. I just think that it's your brain thinking is just your
Oh,
brain interpreting
well,
an objective material reality. That's it.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to try and convince you. I mean, I
No,
completely
it's okay.
understand.
I feel bad. I'm like, damn.
No, 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 no. I don't mean to make you feel that at all. I completely understand what you're saying
Yeah.
because I was raised that way and believe, I can't say that anymore. But that's not really either here nor there. I just wanted to make
No.
that clear. I just,
Well, this is why it's
Um,
so interesting when I'm trying to communicate and talk with people within like the crystal community. Say if I'm at a live sale, because they're all keep talking
ooh,
about the metaphysical properties when they talk, and I'm just like here, like I'm like pretty sparkly mineral, pretty sparkly mineral.
yeah.
And I'm
Okay.
like,
I should my mom was an atheist my whole life until apparently she joined a church a couple of years ago, but she lives in Ohio, so it doesn't matter. Like, but she was an atheist, a hardcore atheist, and she loved
yeah.
like the new atheists, like back in the day, and like
Well, I guess I would be considered an atheist. I've never been a part of the movement. I just don't think that I just don't believe I'm not spiritual or religious. So
yeah. No, and I totally get that. And like most
yeah.
people I've known are not. And I'm
And
not
the way that I
really.
see the atheist community act, I don't want to
Oh
be
my gosh, yeah, no, they've really shown their ass in the last few years, I know.
involved.
Ooh,
Which is
no,
interesting
but
that
and
they
like
believe in the trans thing, but whatever. Okay.
yeah, I thought you guys were materialists and needed facts.
Right?
That they
Yeah, you're
so
sure
hilarious,
are atheists
so
there.
hilarious, so funny.
That,
They were a
well,
bunch of, they're just in it for the ego trip anyway. They want to be right.
yeah, I think
There's
a
the
lot of
guys
it has to
who
do with the bravado, the whole thing, like I'm so much better than you because I don't
smartest
believe
guy in the
that
room
silly nonsense.
syndrome.
Oh, call her they them.
Yes. Oh my god.
Like it's so
But so then my dad is a Wiccan priest.
no.
So that was my contrast growing up. And so like you talk about crystals and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Because I know all that shit too. You
Yeah.
know? And I'm not into that either. And I'm just like, okay, no.
Well, see, that's the thing. A lot of the time in these like crystal communities, like I like see people that are like that, like Wiccan or whatever pagan. I don't know
Yeah.
the thing that thing, and I'm just
Yeah.
and I'm just here. Like, I like minerals and chemical
Right,
compositions,
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh
and
my
I'm trying. I
gosh.
don't want to be a bitch, right? So I sound so. I try to like just not speak so I can like keep my
Smile
mouth
and
shut
nod.
because I
Mm,
don't want
oh
people to feel
wow.
bad about whatever. Because you believe whatever you want, and
Right,
I'm not
right,
there
right.
and I'm not here to like poop all over your party or your parade, but like
Right.
I'm just like, what am I gonna contribute to this conversation? It's
The
funny.
worst part is that, like I say, I know all that shit and I grew up around that shit, so I will get dragged into conversations about it
Oh man,
if in a situation like that. That's happened to me before. And I'll realize
yeah.
about two sentences in that, oh God, I don't actually want to have this conversation. Oh God.
I really don't want to be here right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've just entered a conversation I'm going to regret having. Oh God. Because they
Yeah.
always, I don't know, maybe it's the dimples. People always want to tell me stuff.
Hmm.
And if it's the crystal woo, then it's going to be other woo. And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, what flavor
Yeah.
is this one going to be? Like, oh.
I mean, I won't lie. Not everyone is like a lot of the like mineral collectors. Some of like a lot of the higher when they have like their own collections, like museum quality, and they put it in museums and stuff like that. They usually tend
Mhm.
not to be the woo woo type, but I mean, I can't afford all that.
Yeah.
So, like,
Right.
but I am part of like MindApp, which is like a website that's organized. I forget what institute, but it's all just mineralogists and geologists, and I usually fit in better there because they don't care
Mm.
about that stuff. But then you go to the live sales on like say Instagram or certain like communities there, and like they'll be like, "Oh, it's for this and this. Oh, be careful! This one's really powerful. This energy." And I'm like, I just bought some moldavite, and oh my god, the way that they're talking, and I'm just sitting there because it's such a powerful energy, and I'm like, it's just tectate or tectite.
Yeah.
It's just natural form glass. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're shaking. Why? It's a placebo. Why are you doing this?
Oh. See, I do find the placebo effect fascinating, though. That
Yeah,
is.
because that's exactly like it's like I believe the feeling. I just think that they're doing it themselves. They just
No,
don't even realize
right.
it. They just convinced their mind so thoroughly
No,
out
but so
of
that's the
faith-based
fascinating
things
part. How in
that
the
just
fuck does that
believing it for
work?
no fact, and yet it's having an effect on you. I think it's
No,
fascinating.
no. And the best part about the placebo effect is it doesn't matter if they tell you that they gave you a placebo. It's like the ritual of it.
Yeah,
The getting the pill from the doctor is a lot of what makes you feel better.
yeah. It
It
didn't
is
make me feel
so
better.
fascinating to me. Sorry, what?
I said it didn't make me feel any better. I
No, no,
had
no. I
yeah.
mean, like, no, it's so funny because you do have to be receptive to it in a way. I don't
Well,
know.
and
I've
there's
done a
also
lot
a
of
lot
reading
of
on this.
I think that it's dangerous when we praise it so much because
Oh yeah.
really they like think of the medical community, right? And we'll go in on it this too when we get to more in the book, but like everything's based on male physiology, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
like they don't really do the studies that's necessary to make things really safe for women in
Right.
particular. This includes the
Right.
pill. I know
Yeah.
that I had issues and complications from it, that now when I go through my menstrual cycle for 2 days I swell up so bad I cannot walk. I am bedridden.
Oh my God.
And this is due to the side effects of taking the depot shot. And then I had
Oh.
issues too with the pill. I couldn't take that
Uh-huh.
anymore. I would have massive blood clots with the ring. So
Oh
they
my
had it
God.
was dangerous. So they had to take that out. So
Uh-huh.
like it's not. Yeah, this placebo effect. I think because like I even have my doctor trying to be like, even knowing this, my history, try to find any way to like try to be on it because it's good mood regulator. I'm like, what are you
Oh my
talking about?
God. Who does that benefit exactly?
Mood regulator. I'm like, I'm fine with my
Yeah.
bitchy ass self. Get over it.
Yeah. Oh
I
my
might be unpleasant
God.
to other people around me, but that's not my problem.
Oh my God. What a thing to see. That's so sexist.
And it's a
Um,
woman. If the doctor is a woman.
wow. Now the
Yeah. So
placebo
I just
effect
like,
has its limits, obviously.
yeah. This is actually, to be fair, not my doctor right now. This is my older doctor that retired. But still, like,
Oh.
yeah, I would every single time I went to a doctor's visit, talking, oh, are you good thinking about taking birth control again? I'm like, no, I don't want dick anyway. So like, what is the problem? I don't need it.
Wow. That's
And
weird.
and like already I'm getting tests for like ultrasounds and stuff to see what's going on because I keep like swelling so bad. And now I'm just like whatever. I'm just
Wow.
waiting for my menopause and then I'll be okay, I think.
Mm.
But yeah, like I'm not. Yeah, I don't trust that. Like you got to be careful going out. There are going to be side effects when you take medicines, no matter what medicine it
Yes.
is. But the way that
Yes.
they push it on like on women, like it's kind of concerning because it's okay if you want to recommend it, and then but you have to outline the side effects that are possible. Don't
Which
just
are
give it out like
horrifying.
candy.
So the
Hmm?
possible side effects are horrifying. So,
Yes,
I mean,
yes, but you don't ever hardly ever hear that shit. It's
no.
always
And they push
pushed.
teenage girls. They push teenage girls onto that shit.
Yeah, just because so you could regulate it. So what if it's a regular? Who cares? So it's a monthly surprise. Woo!
Well, I'm like, okay, what, what? Again, I just don't know necessarily who some of these things benefit. Like you say, like, oh, it's irregular, so what?
Yeah, right. Well, that was my thing because I so who cares? Surprise time.
Yeah, you're gonna live with it, and
It's
either
better
way,
than
I
the
don't know.
pain I get when I'm swollen every fucking time now, once a month, and I can't
Right? I'm
walk,
like,
and I can't like
why
get out of
can
bed hardly,
a
and I
certain
look
kind
like
of
I'm like
medication
five
just
times my
not be for
size.
you?
Yeah,
Like, is menstruation a problem that needs to be medicated necessarily? That's what I'm at.
that's what it does start to feel like that they're trying to
Yeah,
just medicate away menstruation.
yeah, yeah.
Like we didn't need these things to it doesn't need to be regulated. Like we're fine for a whole fucking amount of time ever since before we got the bill to regulate. We didn't need to regulate it then. It's just nice not to get pregnant when you don't want to. But like
Right.
other than that, we didn't need to regulate it.
Well, and anyways, that would be up to you. If you decided for
Exactly.
some reason that you want a
Exactly.
dick, you could go and get you some pills, and but
As
that would
long
be
as
your
people are,
choice.
as long as the doctors will be truthful about the side effects, and so you can have a informed consent. Because really, if you don't do that, then it really puts into question the consent of your patients.
No, it doesn't. It voids it.
Yeah, that's well. I was being, I was using language that was.
But
Oh,
that's
sorry.
just
Yeah,
legally speaking.
legally speaking, you're right. Yeah,
Oh yeah, that was it. Reminds me of something. So the serfs won themselves contracts, is what I got from all of that. I'm sorry, I'm going back a bit.
yeah. Well, they would make social contracts at first, so it's just by language, but
Right.
because of all the different sort of like conflictions between the landlords, and the peasants, right?
Hmm.
And all the things that came from it, it started to be written down because there was just so many arbitrary taxes and arbitrary sort of things that the lords are trying to push, and so they would resist by like say not doing this properly or whatever because they were like, fuck this shit, right?
Hmm.
And like and then yeah, so the written contract was because there was so much tension eventually that came about from the
No, and so that's
expectations, and then the actual workload, and yeah.
right. And it sounds like they had a win there, but so there were also some losers. It sounded like, and the winners of that just got absorbed into capitalism.
Yeah, they got absorbed.
So they just became no longer peasants, basically.
Yeah, kind of like the
Um,
upper middle class kind of a thing,
yeah, right.
yeah.
So that all sounded really familiar.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah, funny how it kind of correlates quite closely, feudalism does.
everything is a circle. How about that? No, I'm kidding. Um, but yeah, it's I think of it more like a spiral. Actually, I've heard some people say that time is a spiral, and it sure looks like it to me. That's why you go buy the same thing from different angles. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so you can say to yourself, "Wow, this looks familiar," but that doesn't mean history is fucking repeating itself. I hate that idea.
I think history, it repeats itself, but yeah, spirals is more of an I think accurate because yeah, it repeats itself, but obviously not entirely. It's similar.
Right. It's so fatalistic. It's like, well, it's just going to repeat itself anyway, so I might as well go along for the ride, sort of
Yeah,
thing.
no, see, it doesn't have to though. It doesn't have to. If you
Right.
could stop that, the
Right.
thing is,
Right.
it repeats when you don't know that it's repeating.
Well, like witness all the change. Are you saying that the world hasn't changed in the last
And the
100
thing is, yeah,
years?
it's changed. It's like I said before, it's similar, but it's not going to be the exact same as the exact same as the exact same,
Right. It
right?
can't be. That's what I'm saying. That they're simultaneously like they're denying all the change that has happened.
Yeah.
To say that it's just repeating endlessly because it's clearly not.
Well, that's the thing that people don't really get either. Yeah, they don't really get that. Like, say, okay, I know I bring up the nuclear family issue a lot, but a lot of the reasoning was that Marx had was to include extended family and a community to fight off
Yeah.
the landlords, right? As a
What a
communal thing.
concept.
And
Yeah.
even then, like, yeah, but and even then, you can't take it exactly on right now because back then was very different from now to try to do that now. It might not work.
Right. Right.
So like, and that's okay that it would have worked maybe then and not now, but like it's just get twisted around, right? And then you don't know any sort of history, and then you don't realize this what he was saying, how it might work, and what we might actually take from that into the present, right? Changing it up a bit. I don't know.
Right.
But like yeah, people just yeah. So I think it's important to understand history so it
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
repeat, but I
Hmm.
don't mean the actual like completely repeat, but it's more of the similar things just going again and again because we haven't
Yeah.
figured out.
Well,
Yeah,
because human nature in like the defining those material forces we keep talking about don't change,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
such as resources being finite. That will never change.
Yeah, yeah, that will never change.
So our
And like
approach might,
empires
though,
are always become expansionist. That will never change. It's embedded, inherent in the structure that of
yeah,
this, this to necessitate it. So for its own existence, right? It
to be
needs to be able to
unstable.
afford resources and to always expand because
Right.
you always are need. Yeah, they're hoarding them in the first place. That's
So
what like.
empires are just unstable by nature. Hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally are.
Nice. I like that.
There's
I
never
mean,
been one that hasn't fallen except for
yeah.
capitalism, and it's coming close.
I mean, on the other hand, there's never been a living organism that hasn't died, but so I don't know. I'm just trying to
Water
make it seem
bears.
less obvious. I'm trying to make it seem less obvious. So I don't feel so
Water,
stupid.
water bears. Or
What?
jellyfish.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I heard they're from space.
yeah.
So does that count?
I don't know. I guess water bears don't last forever, but they last a damn long time if they can.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
I
those things are funny. They're funny looking.
don't think I've ever seen one.
You never seen one? This fat
No.
sort of like organism. Looks kind of like the Michelin tire guy,
Oh my
but like with
goodness.
a big mouth, like with
Oh my
one little
goodness.
hole of a mouth. Yeah, water bears. Yeah,
I'll look
if you
that
don't
up.
know
They
what water
sound
bears are, people out there in YouTube, they're like this like organism that can actually harden and then sleep, and like they can live in space in temperatures like volcanoes, because they harden their body and they can wait thousands of years before they wake up from the
Nice.
hibernation after they harden themselves. Yeah, crazy creatures.
Wow. They turn into a rock. That's awesome.
Yeah, basically.
I'm gonna look that up. They sound hideously adorable. Why are they called water bears? Do they live in water?
Because I guess maybe someone thought they looked like water bears. I don't know. I'm not a
That seems
scientist.
like such a weird, adorable name for something indestructible.
Right? I know. Oh, funny.
Scientists are
So
so
my
silly.
so my money is on the water bears existing. Like I'm like all for that. I'm like, you go bears, you outlive us and you multiply in the future, repopulate the earth for us because we
It
fucked it
sounds like
up.
they will. Oh my
They
gosh, it sounds
might.
like they will.
You earned it, water bears. You earned it.
Oh, I really hope we don't, drive ourselves to extinction. That would obviously make me sad. Not that it matters.
Yeah. Oh,
That'd be a
let's.
bummer.
Yeah, I'm not gonna blackmail anyone today, so I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut on this.
I know you had a tough day yesterday. I'm sorry. Did it not? Seriously, you started to talk about that. Did it not go well?
What?
Your
The
your appearance yesterday, the court thing. Did it not go
Oh
well?
no, it went fine for the time being, and I think she's gonna win. I
Okay.
mean, the
Okay.
defense.
Good.
No, I
Good.
don't
Good.
mean it
Good.
that way. I'm just regard. I'm what I'm thinking about is the state of like the ability of a habitable planet and how
Oh
far we've
no.
gone down already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't want to get into doomsday territory
Well, you
about
said you
people
you
out.
you 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 sounded bummed out for a minute, so I was wondering if
Yeah, no, bummed
maybe
out
I don't
about
know.
that. The future in regards to that, but as what happened yesterday, actually it went really well because
Oh,
okay,
good.
the defense, the defense is put in not guilty, right? And their
Mhm.
defense of it is that it's the basically the she was asking for a defense,
Well, that's the only thing you could say, right?
right? He's trying to make it sound like the sign because the sign said keep the cult out of schools, and he wouldn't even call her the the
Defendant?
yeah she would or the claimant or
No,
whatever. He
plaintiff.
would
Sorry. Yeah.
yeah he would say the the women with the cults, the trans cults out of school sign or something like that. Like he was making it, he wouldn't even like it was so pompous, so
Oh.
misogynistic, like little digs. Like I'm like, it's so on the nose. And he has no witnesses standing up for him. It's even the trans activists are like trying to throw him under the bus.
Right. And say he's a psyop to make them look bad. Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
that's
was
funny.
that was the trans side. That was the trans side thoughts on this case. But the guy that like took her to the hospital and stopped and like chased him down to make sure the police got to him, he was there as a witness. The guy who organized the march was there as a witness for her.
Hmm.
And yeah,
Good.
even and there was another trans activist that didn't say that said what happened,
Hmm.
right? But I don't think knows much about even what the protest was about because he said the reason why he went was because he heard it was a homophobic protest going on that he wanted to tend to counteract that. I'm like, you don't know what the hell's going on, to you
Oh my gosh.
guy? Like, you have no idea what this was about. He
No,
just kind of went,
no.
but he
Just
was neutral.
wandered
Like he
up.
just said what happened when he saw. He said he saw the guy punch her and she went down. Like so, he didn't
Yeah.
lie at all. He was very neutral, which was appreciated, right? So I
Yeah.
was like, good going.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other one that was claiming it was a whole psyop for against them was kind of funny. Um, some people, but yeah, the speaker for the organization who organized the march was really well. Yeah, it went really well, and the other one who drove her went really well. And I didn't get to
Good.
hear her. They had convened for the day, so they're doing it again actually today. So I'm gonna check in on that.
Oh,
It went
okay.
longer than thought, right? So I was there all
Hmm.
day too, and
Wow.
yeah, so I didn't get to hear that, and
Damn.
nor did I get to hear him. If he's, I'm assuming that he's going to be
Oh, that should
testifying.
be rich.
So I would like to see what notes they have written down on that, because
Yeah.
the other girls are there right now. The other women that I was with yesterday. So yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on here with us today. It
yeah,
was
I had fun.
so
It was
interesting.
less stressful than last time because last time trying to set up everything and figure things out was a mess.
Right. And then it died in like 20 minutes in or whatever that was. Oh my God.
But that's okay. It was just the introduction and preface or whatever, so it's not like the actual real meat of the
No,
book.
it sounds like there is plenty of meat coming. I
There is
wow.
some burning meat.
That's phrasing now. Come on.
Sorry,
um.
don't mind me. It's early for me, okay, guys? Okay.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Excuses, excuses.
Yeah. Yeah, I should probably get going. My son's actually sick right today, so I'm gonna go check
Oh
on
my
him.
gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, he's having a sick day from school. He's got a fever.
Mm,
Yay. The
mm.
lovely, the loveliness of being a mom.
Yep, and it's that time of year still.
Yep,
Is
sure is.
spring ever really gonna get here? Oh my gosh.
I hope so because I want to go camping so bad.
Ooh, yeah, that does sound nice.
I love camping. I'm a big camper. I'm a camper.
Oh, awesome. I get there.
Yeah.
I get best. There's all kinds of great stuff up there too.
Oh, the best camping's up here. Yeah, up here in Canada, in the wilderness, in the bush. Oh yeah, definitely.
How far out do you go? Like
Real
days?
far out, as far as I can, baby.
Ooh.
I'm alone in the forest. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no cell service. There's nothing. Nothing
Oh.
but you and your brass balls.
Oh, can I ask you a nosy question? What do you do while you're up there? Do you draw or write or just walk
No,
around?
I survive. Well,
What?
I go
Yeah.
swimming and stuff. I do rock hounding. I do that, but I just do lots of hiking, lots of just outdoor activities. Survival.
Okay.
Put into practice some of my survivalist methods of like different things that you bushwhacking kind of thing, right? Where you
Okay.
do tracking. Like there's a lot of things I've learned how to do to survive out there.
That's
So
so
trying to put
cool.
some of
I
that
know
into
nothing about
practice.
any of that.
Oh yeah, I know a lot.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, do you pack food or do you hunt?
Well, I packed food. I do
Okay.
pack my food.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I have one definitely have to make sure to make it so that bears don't get it. So you need a like little bear
Mm,
thing or like a
right.
hatch. Um, Cougars is another thing you got to be aware of when you're out in the wilderness here. There's a lot more. I'd be more scared of a cougar than a bear
Hmm.
because bears usually are just afraid, and if you make noise, they run away. Like they're not
Mm,
that scary that people make them out to be a lot of the time. Grizzly
mm-hmm.
bears are a little bit more dangerous, but we don't really have many here, if at all.
Mm,
It's mostly just black bears, but that's still dangerous. But if you know what to do, they usually don't shit. But cougars will, if they're hungry enough, they will come in to eat you.
ooh.
If they're able to take you out,
Oh
like they'll
boy.
stalk you. They're actual lone predators. Where
Wait.
bears usually just diet on berries and like honey and fish.
Right.
Cougars
They're
will hunt you.
pescatarians.
Yeah, but cougars, they're predatory lone hunters. They will if they think they can get you, they'll get you if they're
Right.
hungry enough.
Of big stuff too. Cougars
Yeah,
hunt
like,
big stuff.
look at
So
that
yeah.
tasty morsel right there.
Yeah.
That's why when Ryder was little, we camping, but you have to stay close to me or else it'd be cougar bait,
Wow.
right? Because they will go for the younger ones, right? So you have to be careful,
Well, yeah, of course. They're slower.
right? Well, and yeah,
Oh my god.
that's able to defend themselves. So you can
Mm.
sneak a snack. They will.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I've heard some terrifying stories, and sometimes you wonder if that's what happened to the kid.
Oh yeah, yeah. So when they go lost in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, could very well be.
Nobody saw or heard anything. Well, it was a cat.
They
I
are
mean,
stealth.
yeah,
They'll go
cats
for
will
the
do
next
that.
swift kill.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, usually if you just when you're just stick together, and if you have make sure to maybe keep a something metal that clangs together and just keep clang clang clang, because one thing that
Mm-hmm.
cougars are terrified of is that sound because it reminds them of forestry, because they'll kill them, they'll shoot them right in the forest with their if they're
Oh,
loggers.
yeah.
So if you clang
Wow.
metal, they hear that sound, they associate that with the forest industry, logging and all that, and
Precious
they'll run.
honey.
But
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah,
Oh, somebody's
so there's that.
commenting.
If you ever are out there in the bush and that is something that you're scared of, it's always good to be loud and to make that clanging sound every once in a while.
Right on. I was thinking of maybe going and checking out some trails in the Smokies, which is nowhere near as remote as that. but there are still animals out there. So.
Well, that's great. I think everyone should touch nature once in a while, not just grass.
Oh yeah, no, I mean we have a woods right down the hill from us, but it's not wild like that. You know what
Yeah,
I
we got some
mean?
wildwoods. We got wildwoods up in this here bush.
I hear tell. Yes.
Man,
That's
it's good to get
awesome.
away from civilization sometimes, I swear. It's good to, it's such a breather, and you can breathe and feel like there's no concrete anywhere, and there's so many trees, and so like it helps shade in the summer, and you just can breathe. You're not breathing in all the
Yeah.
exhaust, all that crap,
Right.
and it's
That's my
just
goal.
so relaxing, and you get the best sleep. Oh my god,
Oh,
it
that's my
regulates my
goal
sleep
is to
so
get
well.
out far enough. I can't hear any motors.
Yeah, you need that. Yeah, like when I was get away, get lost, but not too lost. Like really, don't
Right.
get
Yeah.
lost.
Not
But like,
actually lost.
you know
I
what?
have stuff to do. You know.
Yeah, but like get away from like all the madness that like
Oh yeah.
civilization has like created a little bit. Every once in a while, it helps clear your head, helps get you back.
Yeah. No, I did that yesterday. Actually, I just went. There's like not any paths down there. It's just like this big patch of fallow land that's grown trees around this creek. I don't know. It's really nice.
Yeah, but that's good. That's still somewhere to go that you could get
Yeah.
away from it. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's right
definitely.
down the hill from my house. So yeah, I did that yesterday. Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Because why not?
that's perfect.
I don't have to drive anywhere. It's nice.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna be off.
Okay. It sounds
So
like
we're
you have
doing
stuff to
this
do.
again. Not
Hmm.
next Wednesday, but the day next Wednesday after.
Right.
Okay, perfect. I'll be there.
Okay. Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
All
Thanks
right. Bye,
everybody for
everyone. Thanks for
attending.
coming and listening to me speak
Yeah.
and read.
I should open a tab on the community page for people who want to comment or add thoughts or whatever because it's very thought provoking stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I
So
would like to have anyone who's interested and has questions to like write them down and stuff so we can talk about it.
great. I'll just put like an open discussion tab on there for everybody
Yeah. Okay.
because
Cool.
I have to go too. So
All right.
love to
Bye.
everybody and thank you so much. Bye.